I created a new baseball stat. Let's talk about it. When it comes to identifying a statistic that can really grasp the impact that a player has on their team, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, no stat is perfect, but there are lots of options to choose from. Some people prefer standard statistics such as batting average or on-base percentage and slugging, and analytical baseball fans prefer stats like WOBA, OPS, OPS plus, or WRC plus. But there's always been one major element and really a few smaller elements that have always stood out to me that make these stats feel like they could easily be given some ways to improve and be more fair to hitters and kind of give a more comprehensive view of the offensive impact of a player. And the one major element that all of these stats seem to overlook is speed. See, many of these stats reward hitters for getting further around the base path on their own accord. A double is more valuable than a single, right? But from the standpoint of getting yourself around the bases, what's the difference between hitting a double and hitting a single and then stealing second? In both cases, you've gotten yourself to second base on your own without any assistance from somebody else. That's the inspiration for this stat. Now, let's look at how this stat is actually created. And the stat, I've actually chosen to term this bases created. So we're going to set it up like a fraction, just like many other stats. And we're going to start out by looking at the denominator here. For this, we're actually going to use plate appearances, which is the first deviation we're going to take from normal stats, which most of those actually use at bats. Now, a plate appearance, just for the definition of it, is any time that a hitter comes to the plate. And at bat is any time the hitter gets a hit or gets out. So the real reason that I am using plate appearances is because at bats do not take into account things such as walks and hit by pitches, which in my opinion is the hitter creating a base for his team, and thus that base that he's getting is going to be put in the numerator side later, so why would we not put that at bat in the denominator side now? Also, plate appearances count sacrifice flies and bunts, which that is also the hitter creating a base for his team, even if he's not the one who is actually moving up to the next base. But that is still a valuable thing that a hitter does for his team, and so I think it should be included here. And so for that reason, I've chosen to use plate appearances as our denominator. Now for the slightly more complex part of this, the numerator. Now this is going to be the number of bases that a hitter creates. That way when we divide the number of bases created by the number of plate appearances, we find out how many bases a hitter creates each time he walks up to the plate. So for this, we're going to start with the standard part of the calculation, which is basically the same way that slugging percentage works here. A single will be 1 base in the numerator, a double 2, triple 3, home run 4. Obviously, each time a player gets a hit, 1 at bat is going to the denominator as well because he is coming up to the plate, and the corresponding base from the hit is going to the numerator. And then if the hitter gets out, 1 plate appearance will be added to the denominator, and of course nothing will be added to the numerator. And at this point, we have slugging percentage. And so now we need to add in the plate appearances. But we aren't going to do this in the same way that OPS does, because obviously OPS adds slugging and on-base percentage together. Now on-base percentage uses plate appearances in its denominator, but the problem with this is slugging counts at-bats once, and on-base percentage counts those at-bats again, and then counts plate appearances on top of that, which means we're giving at-bats twice the value basically. So for this stat, we're going to take what we have so far and keep adding things to it so we don't end up counting the at-bats double or anything. So to continue focusing on the numerator here, we're going to add in walks and hit by pitches as 1 base. Again, sac flies and bunts will also add 1 base, as that is you creating 1 base for your team. And so now we are sitting pretty well, I think. We have a pretty comprehensive stat to weigh how many bases a hitter gets in his average at bat. But what about his speed? We haven't put that in yet. So here's how we're going to do it. A stolen base will also add 1 to the numerator. That's 1 more base for him. Now obviously it's not a plate appearance, so it will not impact the denominator at all. Essentially meaning if a player hits a single and steals second, 2 will be added to the numerator and 1 will be added to the plate appearances, since he got both bases in 1 time through the lineup. Essentially making the hypothetical situation of a single and a stolen base the same as a double. But we are not done yet, but we are pretty close, I promise. At this point, we have highly rewarded players who take the risk of stealing bases, but we also need to deduct the negative impact that you can have on your offense by getting thrown out on the bases. And so each time that you get caught stealing, 1 will be subtracted from the numerator. Meaning, if you hit a single and get caught stealing, then statistically, it's the same as you getting out in the first place. Because from a team impact and bases created for your team, you are no longer on the bases. So there it is, all written out, bases created. And in case you are interested, here are the MLB teams and their numbers in this stat for the 2024 season. And I have applied this to every qualified hitter for 2024. And here are the leaders for that as well. And I even created a bases created plus version of this stat for comparison to make it a little bit easier. So make sure to follow, and I will use this stat a lot in our future discussions here on this channel. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this stat, if there are any adjustments you think I should make, all that. And I appreciate your all's feedback, and thank you guys for watching.